Hey guys, welcome back to another Flesh and Blood video. This video is proudly brought to you by the House of Cards, the official sponsor of my stream. Be sure to check out the link in the description below for all of your Flesh and Blood needs. Every card game I have ever played has its own jargon. Today I'm going to talk about Flesh and Blood jargon and some of the ins and outs, and whether you're new to the game or you're an experienced player, this video will have some tips and tricks for you to help you prepare for your next Flesh and Blood event. Let's first talk about some of the more basic terms that will be better for beginners and new players. The first thing I want to talk about is pitching cards. Each card pitches for 1, 2, or 3 resources. A blue stripe pitch card pitches for 3 resources, a yellow stripe pitch card pitches for 2 resources, and a red stripe pitch card pitches for 1 resource. When you pitch a card to play another card, you simply lay it in the pitch zone next to your deck. At the end of every turn, you take every card you've pitched and put them on the bottom of your deck in an order of your choosing. There are a lot of cards in Flesh and Blood that cost resources to play, ranging from 1 to 10. Make sure that when you're building your decks, you're building it with enough blues to be able to play your cards appropriately and not have too many resources or not enough. Now I'm going to talk about the combat chain. The combat chain in simple terms is where you play your cards during your turn and where you block with your cards during your opponent's turn. When you play an attack action, followed by another attack action, you now have 2 attack actions on the combat chain. However, if you play an attack action followed by a non-attack action, you're now breaking the chain. Breaking the combat chain simply means that you take everything on the combat chain, pick it up, and lay it in your graveyard. Breaking the combat chain is very relevant in certain decks. There are certain cards in the game that want to be played at the 3rd or 4th combat chain or even higher to get the most value out of their text. Next, we're going to talk about Go Again. Go Again is what allows you to play multiple action cards in a turn. Every turn, you start with 1 action point. If you play an action card that has Go Again, when your card finishes resolving, you will gain your action point back. However, if you play an action card that does not have Go Again, when your card finishes resolving, you will lose your action point and then be done with action points for the turn. There are some cards in Flesh and Blood that allow you to have multiple action points in a turn. These do give you the capability to play multiple cards in a turn that do not have Go Again. Next, let's talk about the reaction step. The reaction step is a part of every single turn of Flesh and Blood, and almost every hero uses it. There are 2 types of reaction cards. You have attack reactions and defense reactions. Attack reactions are played by the active player during their turn after blockers have been declared. Defense reactions are played by the non-active player after blocks have been declared and attack reactions have been played. Attack reactions often give your attacks more power and give them some on-hit effect, whether that be Go Again or giving your opponent a Bloodrot Pox token. Defense reactions, however, also have effects when they block, but they generally block for more than your regular cards. A lot of regular cards block for 3, defense reactions often block for 4 and or more. The reaction step can make or break a game, so tread carefully. Up next, we have the stack. The stack is an imaginary item where we put cards or abilities to give our opponents a chance to respond before they actually finish resolving. The stack is a little hard to explain, so I'm going to give you an example and hope that it clears it up. Let's say that you're playing Icelander, you have a blue ice card in your arsenal, and it's your opponent's turn. Whenever they play a card or activate an ability, you can now play your card from your arsenal, and when you do, you're going to trigger Icelander's effect. Icelander's effect says whenever you play an ice card on your opponent's turn, give your opponent a frostbite. Well, now, this ability has gone on the stack because you played a card during their turn. Your opponent now has an opportunity to do things, instance or otherwise, before this resolves and gets a frostbite to help play around it. Next, let's talk about instance. If you have not played another card game, instance might be hard to understand. Instance can be played any time during either player's turn as long as you have priority. Earlier, I talked about how getting your action point back is very important to continue to play actions. Instance actually evade this rule. Instance can be played at any time, whether you have an action point or not. As a general rule of thumb, instant cards do not block, so be careful when putting too many of them into your deck. You might have a turn where you can't block. We've talked a little bit about some basic terms and jargon of Flesh and Blood. Now let's take a deeper look and a more complex dive into some of the same mechanics on a deeper level. The first thing that we talked about was pitching cards and their pitch value. A more complex look at that is called pitch stacking. Pitch stacking is the act of when you put your cards on the bottom of your deck each turn, you are preparing for what your second cycle hands will look like. Knowing what you pitch stacked and when you pitched it is very important, because if a game goes to second cycle, you now have the knowledge of knowing what your hands will be and when they're going to come up. This gives you more information than your opponent and a huge advantage in the late game. Earlier, we talked about the reaction step. After the reaction step, we have what's called the resolution step. The resolution step is exactly what it sounds like. When you attack your opponent and they say no blocks, the resolution step is actually where they take damage. Most players don't know that you can actually play cards in the resolution step before your opponent gets a chance to play another card. Heart of Fiendel is a great example of a card that can be played during the resolution step to get its ability. Heart of Fiendel says whenever you pitch this card, gain a life if you have less life than your opponent. A good example of this would be, let's say you're at 20, your opponent is at 18, and they are attacking you for 3. You have a Heart of Fiendel in your hand, and you're playing Oldhim, so you have Crown of Seeds that you can activate. So now, in the resolution step, you take 3 and go to 17. Before they play another card, you pitch Heart of Fiendel to activate Crown of Seeds. You've now put 2 things on the stack, Crown of Seeds and Heart of Fiendel. Heart of Fiendel resolves first, you go back to 18, and then you resolve Crown of Seeds where you put a card on the bottom of your deck and draw a card. You've now been able to activate something in the resolution step before your opponent had priority to play something again. I will admit, playing things in the resolution step can come up a lot more often for other decks, but it is a very niche thing and doesn't come up super regularly in gameplay. If you're just getting into Flesh and Blood, I would hang on a little bit before I start trying to play things during the resolution step. The reaction step is interesting and does have a lot of nuance to it. Something that a lot of people don't know is that when you're in the reaction step, all reactions are treated as instants. Let's say you're playing against Oldhim, you're attacking, and you only have 1 card left in hand, and it's a reaction. Since you are the attacking player, you have priority to play reactions first. Let's say you pass on that because you don't feel like playing your reaction. Well, now your opponent, Oldhim, can try to ice react you to get the last card out of your hand. But since your last card is a reaction and you are in the reaction step, you can now play your reaction, Razor Reflex, instead of getting ice reacted from hand. Now your opponent, Oldhim, spent a card to do nothing and you still get to push through 3 extra points. Playing reactions at instant speed is something that's very fun to know and can easily help you win some games here and there. It is also not something that comes up very regularly, but pay attention to it when you're playing against Oldhim. No matter what game you are playing or where you are in the world, knowing the jargon of the game that you are playing is very important. I really hope you guys found this video useful. I really enjoyed making it. If you guys feel like I left anything out, please leave me a comment down in the comments below. And if you liked the video, be sure to like and subscribe for more content. I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy, guys.